to make a generational change, those days are over. You know why? Because this administration believes government should serve American workers and job creators, all of you in the audience and all of you behind me. We are not serving those gaming the system anymore. And nowhere was government failure more obvious than in our unemployment insurance system. During the pandemic, what started as emergency relief for hard-working Americans became one of the largest taxpayer dollar frauds in modern history. So $888 billion in unemployment benefits were paid during that time, but guess what? It's estimated as much as $135 billion of that may have been stolen through fraud. Think about that. $135 billion of your money gone. That was meant for you. That was meant for your families. And it was meant for hardworking Americans. But instead, criminals, fraud rings, and overseas scammers took this money. But now, due to Vice President's leadership and his task force, we are working every day to make sure that never happens, to get that money back and hold those accountable with law enforcement. Since the task force began, we've already uncovered widespread fraud and are aggressively preventing it from ever happening again. So here's some examples. We found that nearly $29 billion went to the same Social Security numbers across multiple states. Oh, hold on. I got better ones. $139 million got sent to dead people. All right, ready for another one? All right, this is a good one. $1 billion was sent to children under the age of 14 seeking unemployment insurance. Under 14, that doesn't work because they can't work. So it got so bad that as much as $17 billion in fraud may have gone out in a single month. We learned that our systems were overwhelmed and exploited. And who got stuck with the bill? All you, yeah. The taxpayers. Maine is a smart group because Maine knows all too well about these pandemic insurance programs. More than $93 million in overpayments were put on the books here in Maine. And barely $7 million has been recovered. But that's changing. Thanks to the Vice President, paying benefits first and verifying later never works. We must prevent fraud before it happens. And President Trump and Vice President Vance looked at this disaster and said, not in this administration. Now the Department of Labor is taking action to restore integrity with one goal: to protect your taxpayer dollars. We are strengthening our identity systems. We're working with artificial intelligence to make sure that this never happens again, some of the most advanced systems, and we're deploying strike teams in states like California. And we're cracking down on organized fraud. And above all, I'm working very closely with our Inspector General, Anthony D'Esposito, who is fighting every single day to recover stolen tax dollars before they disappear forever. Currently, the Department of Labor is working on recovering $520 million that we had banks freeze. We're also tracking down $912 million sitting on prepaid debit cards in dormant accounts, because every dollar we recover is a dollar that belongs to you, the American people. And finally, this administration believes that unemployment insurance was never meant to be a permanent way of life. The system was only designed as a temporary bridge to get workers back on their feet. So not only is this administration restoring accountability to these programs, but more importantly, we're bolstering workforce development programs that work, like apprenticeships. And here in Maine, shipbuilding is coming back. The president promised the industry would come back. President Trump is delivering on these jobs here in Maine, and we're making sure that you have the skilled workforce, not to create a dependency on these unemployment insurance systems that were scammed, but to make sure that you all have the skills to be in high-paying American jobs. So as I wrap up, let me be clear, and as you're about to hear from our incredible Vice President, he has zero tolerance for fraud. His task force is restoring accountability and trust, ensuring that all of your taxpayer dollars benefit you. He is fighting relentlessly to make the federal government accountable to the American people again, and it's an honor to work alongside him as we put you first. Now, for what you all been waiting for, it is my absolute privilege to introduce the Vice President of the United States of America, JD Vance.
We love you too, and it's great to be in Maine today. Now, before we get started, I got to poll the crowd a little bit because, you know, it's lunchtime. And so when we get back on Air Force 2, I told the team we need to get lobster rolls now that we're here in Maine. So what is the recommendation to this Bangor crowd? Where do we get lobster rolls from? We have a lobster roll guy right here? Okay, fantastic. So where do I need to go? Okay. Whoa. Eagle's Nest. Eagle's Nest? What about somebody, I heard Lobster Boy, is that? Okay. So word to the wise, never come to a crowd in Maine and ask them where to buy lobster rolls, because I've gotten 14 answers in the past 15 seconds, but it sounds like we got plenty of options, and I'm proud to be here in Maine and proud to be in a state with hardworking people, hardworking fishermen, hardworking shipbuilders, and the people who make the United States run. God bless you, Maine. I'm proud to be here. Now, I want to give a great shout out to our acting labor secretary, Keith, who's done an amazing job helping us fight fraud, but also protect American working people. One of the things the Trump administration, the president, has ordered us to do from day one is we are trying to create good American jobs for the American people. Who is sick of leadership that ships our jobs overseas? Aren't we proud to have a president who protects your jobs and keeps them right here in America? But here's the thing, my friends, because you all work hard, because you all pay your taxes, because you do things the right way, it is time to have leadership in Washington that treats you the right way and protects those hard-earned tax dollars. When the President of the United States said, JD, we've got a fraud problem and I want you to tackle it, I was so proud and so happy to be able to do it because I realized that fraud isn't just about saving money. It's not just about protecting taxpayers, it's about protecting you. The money you send to the government and the services that you rely on. So for once, for the first time in a very long time, you've got an administration in Washington, D.C. that is fighting for you, fighting to protect your tax dollars, and fighting to put the fraudsters in prison, which is where they belong. And we're going to talk about that because everybody asks me, the president asked me, I hear from people all the time who say, is going after fraud hard? And I say, unfortunately, no. Because there is a lot of fraud in the federal government. It's like fishing in a barrel. There is always something. Every week, I get a report from these guys, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But it's unbelievable how much you have been fleeced by your own government over the past 15, 20, 30 years. Nobody was looking at this. Nobody was asking difficult questions like, for example, are dead people getting food stamps? Okay? Call me old-fashioned, but I don't think that dead people eat, so certainly they don't need food stamps. Unfortunately, they vote for Democrats, they don't vote for us, my friends. But why is it that we have people who are driving Lamborghinis? And that is true. people driving Lamborghinis who are getting low-income assistance that's supposed to go for housing and food for our people. Why is it that we have people in hospice claiming hospice benefits but who have no terminal illnesses? And by the way, here's the crazy thing. It's very often, it's not a person who's even using their own identity. They're claiming that somebody else, they're stealing somebody else's identity, claiming hospice services, and then when that hard-working American goes to apply for some other benefit, they get tagged by the bank as being a fraudster, even though it wasn't them. It was somebody who's stolen their identity. Who here knows somebody who's had their identity stolen? Isn't that a shame? At least half of the hands shot up, and the reason why we've allowed identity theft to fester in this country is because the government wasn't going after fraud. And ladies and gentlemen, that changed the moment Donald J. Trump became the president of the United States. Now, I want to talk about all that, but I want to give a few notes of shout out here because we have a lot of great local officials and a lot of great future officials that are here today. And first, we have your great former Governor, Paul LePage. Paul, where are you, man? There he is. Now, Paul is a great guy, a guy who loves the state of Maine. We're going to talk a little bit about how he was the biggest advocate for your tax dollars and the biggest threat to fraudsters that ever existed in the state of Maine. And here's the problem is fraud has festered in Maine because this guy is no longer the governor of Maine. So we're going to send him to Washington and fight fraud at the federal level. Now, my friend and former Senate colleague, Susan Collins, was not able to be here. Susan is back in D.C. She doesn't like to miss votes. And here's the thing I'll say about Susan Collins is sometimes I get frustrated with Susan Collins. I almost wish that she was more partisan. But the thing I love about Susan is she is independent because Maine is an independent state. And frankly, if she was as partisan as I sometimes wish that she was, she would not be a good fit for the people of Maine. So let's give a shout out to Susan Collins, who's doing a great job. We have got Senate GOP leader Trey Stewart. Where is Trey at? Raise your hand, Trey. Good to see you, man. A young guy, a good-looking guy, younger and better looking than I am. So I don't like you, Trey. I don't like you. But you're doing a good job. We got House GOP leader Billy Bob Fockingham. Where's Billy Bob? We've got ranking member Chad Perkins. Where's Chad Perkins at? Chad, thank you, man. And we've got the county sheriff, Troy Morton. Where is the county sheriff at? Troy, thank you. Thank you for your service and for all that you and your law enforcement folks are doing for our great country. We've also got some reporters from the Maine Wire, people who have been fighting. People who have been fighting fraud. So let's give a round of applause to John Featherson and Steve Robinson. See you guys. So here's the thing that I've learned in fighting fraud for the last few months and focus on this issue is that fraud is the ultimate non-victimless crime. There are multiple victims in fraud. What we think about when somebody steals your tax dollars and goes and spends it on something it's not supposed to be spent on, we think of you all as the victims, the American taxpayer, the Maine taxpayer, the people who wake up, who go to work, who do what they're supposed to do and don't want their money stolen by people who are doing the opposite of what they're supposed to do. You were the first victim of fraud. But you know what else I've realized is that you're not the only victim of fraud. Because when people steal your money and it doesn't go to where it's supposed to go, there are a lot of people who are out there who are suffering in the process. And I'm talking about physicians who are denied their Medicaid reimbursements because a fraudster stole their identity and charged for services that weren't actually being provided. I'm talking about the good doctors who do what they're supposed to and don't like it when corrupt healthcare providers go and claim services that aren't even necessary. So then the victim is the doctor that gets stolen from, it's the taxpayer that gets stolen from, but it's also the innocent patient who should be able to know that when their doctor prescribes something, it's meant for them and it's good for them. I'm talking about the construction worker who can't buy a cell phone because when an illegal alien goes and steals their identity and applies for SNAP benefits, now all of a sudden they're tagged in the banking system, their credit score is ruined. Not because they did a single thing wrong, but because somebody stole their identity. Fraud is exactly what happens when you've got a government that is not fighting for the American people, but is fighting for fraudsters and illegal aliens, and it had to stop. And under the Trump administration, we are fighting it every single day. And again, it is every single day I learn of something new. I learn about people who say that they're claiming for hospice services, but in fact, they're not providing any services, and they're making hundreds of millions or billions of dollars in the process. Talk about something that we've seen in Minneapolis, but also in Maine. We have seen people go out there and say that they're providing services to autistic children, when in reality, they maybe don't have any children at all, or they certainly don't have autistic children. So they get paid millions and millions of your dollars to provide services that they're not actually providing. And oh, by the way, what happened to the autistic children and their families who actually need those services and need a competent government to ensure that they're doing the right thing? My friends, this has gone on for far too long. You have been fleeced by your own government for far too long, and we are stopping it every single day. Now, let me tell you about a guy, though, who did not stand for fraud. He did not stand for fraud when he was in the state government, and he will not stand for fraud in the United States House of Representatives representing you, and that's Paul LePage. Now, I hate to say this because I love this state. The first time I ever visited Maine, actually, was probably 4 or 5 years ago. Actually, it was exactly 4 years ago because I remember our daughter, who's now 4, was probably 3 or 4 months old at the time. And we came up here and we stayed for a week. It was one of the most amazing trips I've ever had in my life because this is a beautiful state, as you all know, with incredible people, with good food. This is America. This is the very best of America right here in communities like this. And so I have a special affection for this state, but I can't even compare to your great former governor. Because while I love this state as an outsider, he loves this state as somebody who has fought for it every single day. A guy who came to work every single day, protecting your tax dollars, protecting your essential services, protecting our local law enforcement, making sure, common sense, that the government actually works for the people who deserve and have the right to be in the United States to begin with. Makes sense, right? That's what it should be. But because I love this state, I can say I am heartbroken by what has happened to the fraud that's being perpetrated on the taxpayers of this state. Because outside of Minnesota and California, which are probably number 1 and number 2, if they're the gold medalist and the silver medalist, I heard somebody shout out New York. Maybe New York is the bronze medalist, but let me be honest, maybe Maine is the bronze medalist. Because if you look at the fraud that has happened in this state, if you look at the illegal immigrant communities who have taken benefits that ought by rights go to the people in this room, what you have in Maine is a festering problem where people have been taken advantage of and they've been stolen from, and your government hasn't done anything about it. You ask yourself, why did Maine go from a state that did not have a serious fraud problem to one where I can honestly say it's one of the worst states in the union? And I'll give you 2 answers and 2 politicians. Number 1 is Janet Mills, and number 2 is Joe Biden. And thankfully, one of them has already been kicked to the curb, and one is on her way out the door, exactly as it should be. Now here's what Paul LePage do, and I'm not just blowing smoke, my friends. He took concrete action to try to fight back against fraud. He doubled the number of fraud investigations when he was the governor of this state. That's an amazing thing. He required personal photos on EBT cards so that we could make sure the people getting those benefits are the ones who deserve those benefits. And he cracked down on the international fraud rings that were taking advantage of this great state. You have to ask yourself, why is it that you have a government that seems more focused on the illegal aliens growing weed illegally than it is on the taxpayers of this state? Why is it that you have a government that seems not to care about you, but sure as hell cares about Somali fraudsters who are making millions and millions of dollars off of your taxpayer money? And the answer is because you have a governor who hasn't fought for you. Let's send a governor who did fight for you to the U.S. Congress. Let's send Paul LePage to the U.S. House. Now here's another thing Paul said, and this is why I blame Joe Biden, because you cannot talk about the fraud problem in the United States of America without acknowledging that Joe Biden's administration let in tens of millions of illegal aliens all over the United States of America, including the state of Maine. And unfortunately, you still got way too many of them. It's one of the reasons why we have devoted ourselves over the past 18 months, and we're going to keep on fighting to get illegal aliens out of the United States of America. We got to fight for our own people. So here's the difference, though. The difference one administration, the difference one political leader makes is we are now trying so hard. And I know y'all don't like Janet Mills. I don't especially care for her either. But I would love to work with the governor of Maine to stop the fraud that's being perpetrated in this state. This should not be, think about this. This should not be a red state or a blue state issue. This isn't Republican or Democrat. This is common sense. This is protecting every single person in this room from being defrauded by their own government. But you know what she's done? She has prevented local police from working with us to get criminal illegal aliens out of this state. She has actually fought back against our efforts to identify fraud in the Medicaid and Medicare programs, which, by the way, not only does it steal from you, but it means that those programs are going to go bankrupt because all the money's going to the fraudsters. So let me ask you this simple question. Do you like having a government official who fights for illegal aliens over you? No! Do you like having a state governor who doesn't work with the federal government to fight against fraud? No! So let's kick Janet Mills to the curb, and let's send Paul LePage to Washington to help us fight the fraudsters and protect all of you. This guy just said, send him to Gitmo. No comment, sir, but I kind of like sending the fraudsters to Gitmo. We got to get them out of this country, and we got to get them in prison. Here's the thing. Let me talk a little bit about just one person, because I think it highlights how bad the fraud problem has been in the state of Maine. We had an illegal immigrant in this community who said that she was providing services, interpretive services, to other immigrants. Okay, so Medicaid reimburses people to provide interpretation services for people who don't speak English, which, by the way, people should be speaking English in the United States of America. I think that's common sense. But this woman, her name was Rakiya Muhammad. And it turns out that Rakiya Muhammad was not a particularly upstanding citizen, okay? So while she said that she was providing interpretation services, do you know what she was actually doing? Providing zero services and collecting the $15 million over a 5-year period that was going directly into her pocket. And that happened pretty much during the entirety of the Biden administration, and no one in the Biden administration thought to step in and stop this ridiculous fraud. Now, I have two questions when it comes to Rakiya Muhammad stealing $15 million from every single person in this room. Question number one is, why was this person in the United States of America to begin with? Call me crazy, but I think that when we welcome new immigrants to the United States of America, they should be people who enrich our country and bring some good skills into our country, not a person who's going to steal $15 million from the people in this room. But second of all, why on earth are we allowing a person to steal $15 million from all of you without the state government lifting a finger to stop it? Why did it take Washington coming in from the outside to ensure that this person who is defrauding you is going to go to prison? And ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what she's going to happen. Convicted guilty, and she's going to jail, which is where she belongs. Now, with all these things, though, there's a good news, bad news situation. So the good news is that she's going to prison and she's not going to be committing fraud. But the bad news is the same system that allowed these people to take advantage of the taxpayers of Maine, it has not been changed at all by the local government. I'm telling you, and I'll say this to the cameras, I'll say this to the governor and anybody else. If you want to partner in fighting fraud, you've got one. This does not need to be Republican versus Democrat. This needs to be fraudster against non-fraudster. This needs to be good government versus bad government. So I will extend the hand to anybody, whether they've got a D next to their name or an R next to their name. If you want to help the Trump administration fight fraud, you are going to find a willing partner. And by the way, as much as I'm a Republican, you all know this, I'm the Republican Vice President of the United States, we have found some blue states that are willing to work with us. Unfortunately, Maine is not among them. So whenever you replace Janet Mills with somebody, I hope you replace her with somebody who's going to help us fight fraud, protect you, and protect the programs that the people of Maine rely on. And the bad news for Rakia Muhammad is that she's going to go to prison, hopefully for a very long time. Now, the good news for her, though, is I think she might have a future in Democratic Party politics in the state of Maine. Unfortunately, the Maine Democrats, elected Democrats, seem to really like fraudsters. They might just elect this woman the next governor or the next senator from Maine. Who knows? But not if you have anything to do with it. Am I right? Are we going to elect a fraudster to the governor of Maine? No. Are we going to elect a fraudster, a pro-fraud Democrat, to be the next senator from Maine? No. Absolutely not. We're going to send representatives, senators, and governors who fight for the people in this room. We're going to do it by rejecting fraudsters, sending them to prison where we can, and taking away the money in all cases. That's how we fight fraud successfully. And I want to just say one final thing about fraud, because I think it's such an important topic. You heard the great Secretary of Labor say this. What is so different about our approach in this administration is that we're not just sending money out the door and then trying to find the fraudsters afterwards. We're actually making the money conditional on state governments fighting fraud to begin with. Now, why does this matter? Because that's where you've got the most power, and that's where you've got the ability to stop it from going to fraudsters to begin with. So here's what we did yesterday. The Trump administration, we sent out 50 letters to every state Medicaid system all over the country, and we basically said, very simply, that we're going to take away your money unless you get serious about fighting fraud. Common sense.